How would you react if your high school teacher was being defiant, taking recreational substances, pot, and still teaching kids in middle school? Plus, in this movie, the bad teacher continues to seduce the teachers. In this love comedy, the plot revolves around one attractive teacher who is looking for a boyfriend. At the beginning of the movie, she looks hopeless, but as we will see, everything will change. Enjoy the movie. The plot begins with a group of teachers who gather before the summer vacation to congratulate everyone on the end of the school year. The principal tells the results for the year. He mentions the successes of some teachers and also emphasizes that they need to say goodbye to one special person. It is a teacher named Elizabeth. She has only been at the school for a year, but the students and staff have grown attached to her, and he tells them that they have prepared a gift for the whole staff. It's a gift card for $37 and passes the word. Elizabeth says that she will miss everyone very much, but as we can see, she is leaving the students and would like to get to know the staff better. And again, it is not true. She was just torn between school and preparing for the wedding. She realized that she doesn't need the school to set a good example for the kids. She just drives away from school at high speed in her red Mercedes without noticing the school bus and says goodbye to everyone. She arrives at her house where she wants to make her boyfriend feel good. She says it's just going to be a crazy workout in bed, but upon entering the room, he's sitting with his mom and her suitcases are packed next to them. He says to take a needed break for a while, as his mom says she spent over $16,000 for nothing. She says she doesn't love his son and that they need to break up. She is asked when her boyfriend's birthday is, but Elizabeth can't remember the date and gives him a gift card. They break up as they realize she doesn't love him, and it was all about the money. She didn't love him opera and did everything to be together, but his mom says they need to return the family ring. Elizabeth goes back to school in a cheap red car too. She's sad walking down the hallway, as she really didn't want to come back here. She sees the stupid pictures of her coworkers and heads to her class, but meets a cheerful teacher who pisses her off, and she can't remember her name. Her name is Amy Belkova, and she lies that she caught her husband in bed with someone else, so she left him. After a brief conversation, Elizabeth walks away. She realizes that in order to find a new husband, she needs to enlarge her breasts, so she opens a magazine and sets a goal to achieve in the near future. Meanwhile, another coworker walks in and invites her to lunch. Since she's being paid for it, she accepts. She says she's looking for a man to support her. In the past, she was fed up with suitors who gave her lots of souvenirs, but used condoms, and so she didn't find a husband. She says that now she looks like a 4 with her new tits, she will look like a 5. She realizes that now it's hard to compete with girls who have big breasts, so she decides to raise money for a breast augmentation. Telling a brief plan she wants to stick to. She has to go to a meeting, but she doesn't want to, and tells her coworker that she doesn't need to go there. But things don't go according to plan, and she goes to a bar. At the bar, Elizabeth starts getting approached by other guys, and she picks the best one. She is having fun, and they start dancing. Elizabeth gives a couple compliments and suggests going out for the whole weekend. She learns that the guy is an intern and is leaving tomorrow, that he doesn't have a private jet, and that he wants to be a therapist and send his boss. She clarifies just a therapist is really just a therapist and sends him off. On the clock, it's 5:15. She wakes up disgruntled to get ready for school where a wild thing is happening. The kids are in shock. In one of the classes, the prettiest girl in the class, Chase, is talking about how she will be spending a week in Kansas, and her classmate Gareth is trying to pay attention since he really likes her. When Elizabeth walked into the classroom, turned off the lights because I was hungover after a night of partying, she sat down and she was immediately approached by a girl, Sasha, and started sucking up to her. She took the pie and told her to sit back down. She found out that the kids weren't watching the movies she liked and told 2 students to put the TV on. At the same time, she tasted an unpalatable cookie and immediately spit it out. Some were not happy about watching movies on the first day, but only Chase said it was cool. Elizabeth went to bed. There's a conflict in the cafeteria, but Elizabeth doesn't care. She meets a PE teacher who has a crush on her, telling her why she broke up with her boyfriend and making up again that he was having fun with his dog. He offers to grab a bite to eat, and when she clarifies that he's the PE teacher, she turns him down. To lighten the mood, she says she doesn't date coworkers. And here Emily approaches Elizabeth and says that there were kids throwing food around and Elizabeth didn't do anything. She says she doesn't care and tells her that she wasn't at the meeting where she proposed a new concept of how to keep an eye on the kids so there are no fights. I just thought about how to get rid of her, said that send me everything by email and left. Emily did not let her go at once and started to suggest that we should be friends, but she said to get away and tried to run away. After lunch she goes to class, but a young guy looking for the office catches her eye. She offered her help to show him the classroom and get used to the school. She noticed his watch. She immediately realized it was jackpot. When she found out that the clock was a family business and a very famous family name, she immediately comes up with a cunning plan and goes to see him off to his class. He says he just broke up with his girlfriend and shows her a photo on his phone where Elizabeth realizes she needs a breast augmentation because that's what he needs. She went to the doctor to see how cool his boobs were, and she wanted one too. When she found out how much the surgery would cost, she thought she would do the surgery first, then pay for it. But the hospital refused her and said money first, then the surgery. Elizabeth starts looking for money. She calls all her friends and says that she is dying and needs money for treatment. She says that she rents a room and that she broke up with her ex-boyfriend, and he owes her 10.0, but he refuses her. She calls him a jerk. Her neighbor comes out of the room and says he owes her money for the apartment and offers her a drink. With the students, she keeps watching stupid movies in class and observes that one student wants to hit on the prettiest girl in the class and doesn't know how to do it. And that's when she realizes he needs help. They have an event planned, a car wash. He says it's the best event a quarter can have, but Elizabeth is indifferent so far. But once she learns that there's a lot of money to be made there, she changes her point of view drastically. She heads to the principal's office and notices a student and the principal taking erotic magazines from each other. The student leaves the office and Elizabeth walks in where around the principal sees lots of dolphin pictures of him and realizes that here is the point of contact is dolphins. He says he even has a bumper sticker on his car where he reveals that he even has a son dolphin Simon. She's shocked but doesn't show it and says she wants to try a new approach this year and take charge of the 7th graders at the car wash. But the principal says that Amy is in charge and is trying to get rid of the competition and says she just wants to be helpful. But we know that's not true, and what she needs money for when she arrives at the car wash. She starts showing off her car washing skills. She gets everyone's attention and freezes and starts making money by enticing new drivers with their cars. She sexily washes the first car to give as many tips as possible. Some of the students even got excited as all the car owners did. Satisfied, even the policeman who was driving by got in and hit the car twice and drove away. Here, a new teacher she met at school pulls up in his brand new Audi. He walks up to Elizabeth and compliments her on a couple of things, and they talk for a drink. He tells her that he is not ready for a new relationship right now and to be patient. After the workday is over, she counts all the money she has earned without noticing her jealous coworker who wants to tell everything to the director. She goes into the men's room to complain about Elizabeth, who earned the money. The principal sits on the toilet and another coworker comes in and they both want her to leave. The principal tries to get rid of her. The conversation continues, and he praises Elizabeth for earning $7.0 and that even the fathers of their children called and said that they need such events more often every Saturday, and he chases Amy away. Meeting in the hallway, Amy and Elizabeth's rivalry intensifies. Elizabeth continues to pick out the perfect breasts for herself in class. Another teacher enters the class and brings a test for the students saying that it was planned in advance, so they should write it well as it is a preparatory test for the main test which plays an important role for the students and the teacher. She hands out the assignment to the students. Next we see the wall in the cafeteria where they help the students Elizabeth and another colleague discuss and rival. But here enters a new teacher, Scott, who Elizabeth wants to seduce. He tells that the math teacher Sandy Pincus in the school parking lot. Someone cut the tires on his car, and his wife Elizabeth says that it is terrible not to get caught and changes the subject and tells her colleague to bring milk. Emily, who also wants to seduce the new teacher, enters into the conversation and also starts to communicate, specifically telling him that Elizabeth is going to have her breasts enlarged. But he reacted appropriately, saying that everyone has the right to choose. After that, Elizabeth called a parents' meeting where they started to ask how she prepares students for the test. Elizabeth said that they have a lot of revisions and she is not going to share them all, and then finished the meeting by offering the parents cookies and water. After the meeting was over, the father of one of the students came up to Elizabeth to ask how his son was doing and said that he hoped he would get a positive grade on the test. He asked her to keep an eye on his child for better grades and gave her money. Here Elizabeth had a plan to get money quickly and get new breasts. After that, Elizabeth immediately starts going to all the parents to collect money for her to do extra lessons with their children. She finds the right words to say to each parent to make them want to give their children extra lessons. She sells her old things and keeps daily records of how much money for the operation. Collecting bottles, she sells all the excess, and after a hard day she sleeps in class again. She also continued to hunt for Scott and uses every available approach he offers his book favorite. At the same time, Elizabeth is in her car smoking pot. The student treats her to a cookie. In return, Elizabeth gives the schoolgirl advice on how to improve her image. That same evening, there is a disco at school where the gym teacher wants Emily to ask for his attention. Well, the same disco sees Scott dancing wildly, but the gym teacher offers to smoke together, but she starts dancing with Scott. They escape from the disco to the school corridor, where Scott wants to confess his affection. Dana thinks she likes him and is very disappointed when she finds out it's her rival Amy, and sets him up by saying she's a lesbian and needs his money. Trying to get Scott to like her again, Elizabeth admits that in a couple of months she'll have her breasts done and they have fun finding lovers for each other. Back at the disco, Elizabeth suggests smoking pot with the gym teacher, and he agrees. When they come to the gym, they smoke and push their colleague, who almost finishes a cigarette in one puff. Trying to show off their strength, the gym teacher can't get on the rope, and they start jokingly fighting, after which they lie down on the floor to relax. They discuss why Russell became a gym teacher, and he tells his story to try to surprise them. In return, he asks why she is a teacher, and Elizabeth thinks she did something wrong in her past life. He suggests a weekend drink at a bar and asks why she wants a boob job, and gives her advice that she has great breasts and doesn't need a boob job. The morning after she smokes a lot of weed, she goes to a store that was closed for Christmas. She meets her students with their parents, who invite her to celebrate the holiday as well. She excuses herself to go out with a big group, but they realize she has no one to celebrate with, and so they invite her to their house. Elizabeth agrees, and they have a fun family dinner. They sing songs, read poems, and eat, but Elizabeth is in a hurry to leave after she has eaten. After Gareth reads a love poem, Elizabeth realizes she needs to give advice because the schoolboy likes a classmate, Chase. She shares her experience and gives him some tips on how to get a girl to like him. The next morning at school, when the students are watching an action movie, Elizabeth also wants a drink, finding several bottles of whiskey in her desk. Then a new friend invites her to a school concert where the teacher's band will be performing. At first, Elizabeth refuses, but when she meets Scott, she changes her mind after the invitation. The same night at the concert in the bar was so boring that she wanted to run away, but changed her mind and gives her friend advice on how to please the cowboys. Sitting at the concert while the band plays, they chat with the PE teacher. At the show, Scott says that the new song is dedicated to a special girl, but she turns out to be Amy. And that's when Elizabeth realizes she needs a breast augmentation. When Elizabeth is riding in the car, a new friend lets her know that she can get a year-end bonus and breaks her nose. Elizabeth asks what the prize is and what needs to be done. It turns out that the class that best passes the final test at the end of the year, the best teacher, get $5,700. And here Elizabeth has a plan to make money. The next day, she quickly begins to prepare her students for this test. And for the first time, she kicks a student out for making stupid jokes in class. She says that from today everything has changed, and they will study hard for the test. She has her own special teaching methods, and for wrong answers, she throws a ball at students, and for the right one, vice versa. All the students answered incorrectly, but one of them answered correctly, and she did not throw the ball at him but threw it to him, so that for the correct answer he hit the ball at her. The gym teacher saw it and stopped the throwing by approaching the student. He advised him on how to throw the ball correctly to hit it. Elizabeth is still sitting there picking out her breasts. At that time, Amy flirts with Scott at school and tells him how the weekend went. At the same time, Elizabeth walks into the office with a skewed shirt, and Amy immediately notices it, saying that the shirt needs fixing. She immediately turns away and undoes all the buttons to tighten it, and all the men look at her, after which she easily strikes up a conversation with Scott. To get ahead, Emily asks the students how Elizabeth's classes are going, and the student immediately says that they have started reading, stopped watching TV, and are fully studying for the test. And the child accidentally tells her that Elizabeth smokes pot, and then Amy goes to the principal to tell him about it, so he can order a various preparations test. The principal immediately says that he will be laughed at if a various preparations test is administered on the girl's testimony, and tries to calm Emily down. He shows the dolphin gift and says that Elizabeth is a very good teacher and can be trusted. Immediately Amy says that she can't be trusted and starts to push for pity, but the principal insists. Elizabeth continues preparing the students for the tests and checking the essays, which are full of mistakes. As she scattered the test results, she kicked all the students out of the classroom and noticed the answers lying on the floor. She has to prepare the correct answers so that the students will memorize them. Then she calls the testing center and makes an appointment with a member of the committee. That same evening, she meets with Carl, a representative of the committee, and interviews him, telling him that she needs to see the tests before the students write them. He refuses and says that it is impossible because the tests are in a safe place and can only be opened with a special key around his neck. Immediately, she decides to get him drunk with cocktails, seduce him, and use the key. They come to his office at work where the tests are lying. Elizabeth offers him a drink and slips him a pill while he is distracted by turning on the music. Then she goes to the restroom while he falls asleep, but when he comes back he is still waiting for her, and after he falls asleep, she takes the key from him to get the tests out. A month later, the principal announces the test results to the teachers, says the school is in the top 5 schools in the state, and says the best teacher is Elizabeth, giving her a check for $5,700. Then Emily gets jealous but congratulates her on her win, and says they're going on a cattle drive with the kids, and I'll be chaperoning it as a romantic weekend. Emily says she's dating Scott and emphasizes that Elizabeth doesn't have a boyfriend, but she points out that the guy she likes is dating some bitch. Elizabeth then goes to the clinic and pays for her own surgery. Back at school, she goes into Amy's class to give her a special surprise apple and goes on a field trip with Scott, replacing Amy. As they ride the school bus, the cattle ask if Elizabeth is worried about the surgery and that they're setting the right example for the kids. Meanwhile, Emmy sneaks into Elizabeth's classroom and changes desks to open the lock. Then she finds the wig and the answers to the exam. She immediately goes to Carl and asks him if he gave her the answer to the tests. After she realizes that he did, she immediately goes back to the principal and says that Elizabeth cheated on the tests and framed a colleague. At the same time on the excursion, Elizabeth and Scott are chatting, and after listening to Pete teacher talk to them, Elizabeth realizes that Scott is too soft without having an opinion and then immediately leaves. Elizabeth and Scott go straight to bed where adult games take place. She calls Amy to hear them relieve the tension. After a successful completion, Elizabeth suggests that next time they try doing it without clothes on. Scott kisses her and goes to bed. In the hallway, Elizabeth pees and he realizes what's going on. She wanted to lure him to her room, but he refused. In the morning, Amy receives a message where she hears what is happening at the hotel. On the excursion, a schoolboy confesses his love for his classmate, and she starts to get embarrassed and calls him a fool, and the whole class starts laughing. Elizabeth tries to calm Gareth down, but he runs away to the cabin. She tries to find the right words, but she's not very good at it, saying he's too sensitive and will meet another girl, so that the other students don't laugh at him. Elizabeth decides to help the guy and gives him her bra, and in front of everyone says she caught him with a naked 8th grader, and raises the guy's profile among his classmates. The gym teacher noticed that Elizabeth gave away her bra and said that she did a good job of helping the guy, and they started flirting with each other. They said that she might give away her panties, but as it turns out, she doesn't wear them. When the students came back from the field trip, Amy drove right over to tell Elizabeth that she knew all about the test and what happened at the hotel. She'd have to get her bonus back or she'd go to jail. Elizabeth will also have to explain everything to the director and the chief inspector tomorrow. She asks a favor of her neighbor to scare the inspector not to testify. But things don't go according to plan. In the parking lot, a friend crashed into the inspector's car and smashed his knee and started to break the car. After they started arguing, the inspector was handed an envelope where he saw his naughty pictures. The next day, Elizabeth is called to the principal's office. Everyone starts to pressure her, and after the inspector enters the office, he states that the statement was untrue, so they didn't believe him right away. He said he was using light substances, so he gave false testimony. He doesn't want anyone to get hurt and leaves. Amy Belkova says she needs to take another test, but is denied and shuts her mouth. Elizabeth says it doesn't need to be done and picks the right arguments. Then you point out that there are no perfect teachers in their school, and that there are even teachers who use recreational substances. Then immediately the experts come looking for special substances at the school. And because Emily forgot to change the desk back, the dogs went to her office and found a drawer with nothing in it. But Elizabeth suggested that the drawer might have a double bottom, and there they found pot and pills, after which Emily was taken to the police. At the end of the school year, the principal is already saying goodbye to Emily, who's being sent to another school, and Elizabeth is staying. Elizabeth meets with a gym teacher and then passionately reconcile and start a new relationship with a clean slate. Write in the comments, how would you feel with such a cool teacher? Imagine yourself in the shoes of your students. Would it be cool to be taught by such young and modern teachers? How fulfilling would your school days be?